Hi, everyone, and welcome to nlbp-tv. I am Camille Miller, the founder and executive director of the Natural Life Business Partnership, and I am here with my co-host, Lee Gabarzik, out of Soulful Mandelas out of Long Valley, New Jersey, and we are here for the Lee and Me Show. Hi, Lee.
Hello, Camille.
Today, we think we'll talk about reinvention, because
Yes.
we are in the third week of lockdown of our coronavirus. And we were saying before we turned on the camera that the first week I felt like everyone was kind of like it was like a vacation. Like they were just kind of like, okay, we're going to stay in, kind of acclimating to what this might be or might not be, kind of learning. The kids were sent home. The second week we're like, okay.
That's so exciting.
Yeah. And right. People were probably had a little bit of anxiety about, is my job essential? Is it not essential? How long is this going to be? Blah, 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 blah. And now that we're in the third week, I think it's kind of setting in like, okay, crap. And the president just came out and said it's going to be at least till April 30th. So at least we have a date. I think before it was just kind of all over the place, but now we're saying, okay, it's at least another 30 days.
Yes. So
we're like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
Where rebirth comes in.
Yeah. So, there's so much in this really. So we had talked a little bit about how, normally I'd have my day, right? I get up, I go to the little store, I go get my coffee, I go off, I do my errands, I have my meetings, I do whatever I do. And that creates a kind of like a rhythm.
Yeah.
It's like a flow. It's like, this is my day. This is what I do. This is who I am. And a lot of times definition of self is really connected to whatever that action happens to be in that day. And there's a lot of energy that goes into maintaining that identity, because that identity is really at the very source of a sense of personal security. No, I am that I am, that I work out, or know that I am the leader of my, business, or know that I am whatever. And all of those identities can be, we talked about this for a moment, they can be interrupted. People go on vacations, maybe they get sick, maybe they get some kind of minor illness and they're home in bed and whatever. And they kind of write it through, and other people are doing their things. And so tangentially, they're still being supported in some kind of process that normalizes even those events that may be occurring for them. So they have their thing, but other people are doing their thing. They're keeping them in touch with, you're not at the office, but this is what's happening, blah, blah, blah. So that's one. And now we're in this other part. And this other part is getting into a point of, no, this isn't that. This is something else. Yeah. We don't know necessarily what that may be. We may be till the 30th, it may be some other time. We have some definition, yes, but that's, I would put like, I wouldn't say that that's actually really, really solid. We know it's going to be up to that point.
Yeah, but it's not like it's going to be lifted next week. I think originally people were like, 2 weeks, I got this. And now they're like, oh crap, this is going to be a little bit longer than 2 weeks.
Serious.
Yes. 6 or 12, or we know it's more than 2. And I think that's where, and I'm starting to see even on Facebook today, people were starting to write like, okay, I'm having trouble. Like it was fine in the beginning and everyone's jumping on video and doing their happy hours and their dance parties and their everything. Right. Yeah. And now it's like, okay, I've had enough. I have no personal interaction. I have no touch. I have no laughter. I have, it's a different thing. The next thing
I'm losing my tactile connection, if you would.
Yeah. Like I'm actually watching TV, which is driving me insane because I'm just sitting here going, what am I doing? My butt is just getting wider and I never watch TV. And yesterday I was sitting there going, so seriously, what do I do?
All right.
So, what did I used to do?
Who am I? So really that's exactly it. Like, so who are we when we're not doing what we normally do?
Right.
And that is really a question of identity. And for a lot of people, who may have been very attached to a doingness state of experience. In other words,
yes,
just give me something to do. I'm a doing, I'm going to make it. But, we're not. We're a being, right? We're a human being.
It's an identity thing too.
Exactly. So now that I'm not necessarily caught up in my rhythm and my doing and all that other stuff, now I'm in this pause and reinvention, as we were saying. And now I'm looking at it from a different perspective. And I'm saying, okay, now this is what it is. And I accept that this is what it is. What is it that I then want to do about this? And that is an unavoidable question. And it's a question that everybody is in. So there is comfort in the sense that that people at least are sharing this. So it's not like, I'm alone and I'm isolated and no one understands. People may not get specifically what's going on with my own individual process, but nonetheless, there is a continuity or connectedness that exists in the greater community, or the greater global community, especially here. We can actually use those global community. So when we're looking at this kind of reinvention, we talked about how reinvention is really the birth of creativity. Because, if I'm not doing it the way that I'm always doing it, now I'm doing it differently. And that actually is creative, and that's actually opportunity. Because now I'm in a place of reinventing and re-looking at it from a fresh perspective. And this kind of personal inventory is really, really very healthy, I think. There's so many people who, you can see it all over YouTube, where they have this horrible crisis. They get HIV, or they have a near-death experience, or they have, this is back in the 80s when HIV was more deadly, or they have cancer, or they have a car accident, or whatever. And they say, oh my God, I'm so grateful for that moment, because that was when I realized that what I really wanted to do is blank, or I really got that what really mattered was blank. And they kind of moved on it.
Yeah.
And now we're at a point where we don't have just these individuals, and not to compare it to those things per se, but it is still an interruption. And that interruption is going to bring up for, okay, who am I? Mm-hmm. And for people who really have, I think this is really particularly hard for people who may not have done a lot of self-reflection, because now they're at a place of the canvas is pretty blank. They're looking at how they want to, what kind of picture they want to draw for their lives. And some people, for what may have been a very long time, are now looking at something they just haven't really thought about. And now what's really cool about that, now we have this kind of opportunity again to say, okay, given that this is what it is, what do I want to do about it? Given what this is, who am I in this moment? And what do I want to do with this? What is it that really, serves me? Or, one of the things that's kind of like, trending out there is what can I do? Not just, what is available to me? And I would suggest that one of the most important things is a kind of like a reset or reinvention of self, which is really, really powerful stuff. I mean, it's one thing when you have one person kind of saying, you know what, I had this crisis or this challenge, and this is what it did for me, and I'm going to share that with the world, and this is how it is that I was able to get through this, and blah, 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 blah. We get to do this as a collective. We actually get to do this as an entire world.
Yeah.
In a way, that's really cool, because now we're looking at this thing from, we're sharing in this whole process of reinvention. What kind of planet do we want to have? What kind of country do we want to have? What kind of society do we want to have? I mean, this is really, really great. And if it could be seen from a perspective of opportunity, which would mean that going outside of whatever it is that I was attached to, call it that, almost maybe an addiction, if you would, to my routine, and instead am now in this place of self-reflection, which creates opportunity, that is really, really great. And that's where societies can really change.
Yeah. I'm really, really, really interested to see what comes out the other side of this.
Me too.
This is where people are really they have to be. Like, I've even seen it like for restaurants, people selling pizza kits and family meals and
yes.
And actually this morning I talked to a friend of mine who owns a restaurant. I was like, how are things? He's like, really good. He's like, I'm afraid of it drying up. He goes, but people are really coming out and supporting. They don't cook. And I'm like, yeah. So he was really worried, and then realized, wow, there's this whole other side of my business I didn't even do,
Yeah.
And so I think reinvention is going to come out of a lot of it. But now I think this week, maybe the next 2 weeks, I don't know. But the smaller businesses, or people are going to go online for the first time. I spoke to someone yesterday who can do distance healing, Reiki distance healing. And she's like, my office is closed. And I'm like, okay, but you just said when you explained that you do distance, she's like, yeah, I've never actually done it though. And I was like, so why don't you call all of your people and say, hey, this is what I can offer you. Because she was a massage therapist, but this is what I can offer you,
Absolutely.
And see if for the time being that will bring you in money or something. And you might find out that you love doing it, like I do all of my sessions through Zoom globally. I talk to people all day long, but a lot of people don't. So I think Zoom and video is going to be a whole different thing. I also think that so many corporations that still had people going there, and working that 9 to 5, which is so archaic to begin with, right? That now these people are on flex time, they're working from home, they're figuring out that they have to.
Right.
The amount of people that are not going to go back to that 9 to 5, because now they have something to say, like, there's no reason for me to be here. Those big office buildings that we probably really don't need that much anymore.
Yep.
So I think it's going to change the structure of how business is done.
Absolutely.
In a good way. We don't need all those cars on the road. We don't need, I think a lot will change from this, and I'm kind of excited to see how people reinvent themselves and what they do. I do understand there's a lot of people in a very scared place right now.
Absolutely.
Out of this comes the rebirth, the reinvention, the relooking at, this is what I always wanted to do. Now everyone is on level playing ground. Doesn't matter who you are, your net worth, who you, we're all on level playing ground right now. We're all going through this together. So it's real time to step forward and say, oh my gosh, I always wanted to do this thing. Let me write the business plan.
One of the things that this brings up too is that in early societies, they used to have so this would be in the hunter-gatherer part. So it used to be that within the village, the men would go out and do their, hunt, whatever. The women would be running the day-to-day events within the village, and women were really in charge then. In that societal system, they were, because the seat of power was in the village, because all the men were scattered all over the place doing whatever. So the people who were organizing and making it central were the women. And it's going to be very interesting to look at how this may even influence some of the kinds of more fundamental gender roles that are going on. There's a lot of things that are really being influenced by this, and maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself on this. But I'd be very curious to see what happens as we kind of bring the family back into more of the central part of this, when we're working from home and the kids get that, and mommy's doing this, and kind of navigating through some of this stuff. And it's not everything is like being left. And then we go to this place, and then we build these huge buildings. And it's nice to be connected to people, but we don't need to have, some of the things that are just coming up for me as we're talking here, it would be interesting to see these things reinvented, and to really look at another thing that's been coming up is, we talked about this in the previous episode, how, nature is just coming back. I mean, it's fascinating to see air quality improve, water quality improve. You're seeing wildlife come back, swans in the Venice canals, et cetera, clear skies, and in really deeply industrial places. And this kind of reminds people of, we were at choice with what we want to create.
Right.
We don't have to be trapped by our old patterns. We don't have to be defined by our old patterns. People will say, well, it's what I've always done. Well, here's a chance to do it differently.
Yeah. And also I feel like family mealtime.
Yeah.
Right? So many people don't do that. You have to, right? Like family game night, which we had the other night, which I used to do with my family. But I did it when my kids were little. I did it, but now I have adult kids, and we had like a family game night because we're all home. There's nothing else to do. No one's running out. No one's looking at their phones because and it was actually really awesome. So I'm actually really liking it. But I have a neighbor that keeps kidding me. She's like, I tried cooking again. So. Because you have to, you're stuck. Like, what are you going to do? How many nights can you really order out? I guess you could do it every single night. Personally, I'm a little afraid, but
yeah. So one of the things about this reinvention and the patterns of our day and within our own patterns and our within our own whatever the things there are that define us.
Yeah.
So if we were to look at this as like everything is serving us and everything is actually for the greater good, which I believe, I really do. As much as things can sometimes be really painful, right. I do believe that there is that kind of push, if you would, to do it differently because the thing that I'm doing isn't working. And life is stepping up and saying, you know what, have you tried over here? Have you looked over here? Maybe over here, you might find it a little bit easier for yourself. And I dearly do believe that this thing will last up to the point that people get that kind of message. Yeah. That when we get that kind of reinvention, how important that is and what that means to us as a global society and how we are really all very, very much energetically connected. I mean, I can almost feel it, and one of the things is, and then I can feel like the whole world, or like sometimes feels a lot of energy around me kind of being reinventing itself. And then that kind of connects to me and I connect back to that. And so one of the things I just want to, as a little sidebar here, is that when people need to sleep more, do, because there's a lot of processing in this. There's a lot to think about. There's a lot to review. And I think sometimes what happens is there's this feeling of like, well, I'm just going to race and solve this, and I'm just going to make this thing happen, and I'm going to go here, and I'm going to do that. Because I'm noticing with the kind of work that I'm doing that people are very pressured. They're all under the gun. We have to make this happen. We have to go over here. Blah, 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 blah. And one of the things is I'm always kind of like, well, no rush. We can do it. And then when we slow down and because when we slow up, we start getting greater clarity about really what is happening. It allows the dust to settle. We can see a little bit further into our own identities and our own possibilities. And that's where the real magic happens. And I think once this adjustment period kind of calms down a little bit more, that will happen. And that's when things are going to really start moving. Then people are going to be saying, hey, I have nothing else to lose now. I'm just going to be myself.
Yeah. Very authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's what I'm excited to see what happens.
Me too.
All right. We will wrap this up. Thank you for joining us today. If you loved this episode, please share with all of your friends, and you can contact us at thenaturallife.org. If you'd like to hear about a certain topic or you want us to talk about something, please let us know what you think. Thanks, Lee, for another great episode.
Camille.
I'm trying to figure out how to end it. Hold on.